Disaster in Afghanistan as suicide bombers take aim at American troops and Afghanis trying to leave. We'll talk with Congressman Peter Meyer, who just returned from a controversial trip to Kabul. And with school bells poised to ring and case counts moving higher, the debates rage over masks and vaccines. The leaders of Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb counties will weigh in. Today is Sunday, August 29, 2021, and this is Flashpoint. Hi, and welcome to Flashpoint. We come to you this morning still stung, as so many Americans were, by the horrific events at the Kabul airport on Thursday. There were fears that in those massive and desperate crowds that were swarming the airport, there were opportunities that terrorists would find so compelling and irresistible. And now we begin to acquaint ourselves with ISIS-K, which kind of sounds like the Delta variant of ISIS. For 20 years, Afghanistan has been a festering boil for the U.S., much as it was for the Soviet Union before that. The how of leaving is a matter of much more debate than the question of leaving itself. And the very chaotic evacuation planning and execution is what led two congressmen to make a surprise and controversial trip to Kabul. One of them was Michigan Republican Peter Meyer. And in just a moment, he'll be my first guest this morning to talk about what he saw there and also about the criticism of his trip. And then, with some kids headed back to school tomorrow morning, we're going to talk mask and vaccine policy. We have watched nasty shouting arguments breaking out between parents and administrators. Is this the time for local control, or does that make it impossible for us to really remain cohesive in responding to the pandemic? Warren Evans, Dave Coulter, and Mark Hackle will all join me all today on Flashpoint. Let's start with Afghanistan this morning. Before the suicide bombings of Thursday, a lot of the discussion surrounding the situation at the Kabul airport included a fair amount of criticism for the surprise appearance of two members of Congress who showed up at the airport. Democrat Seth Moulton of Massachusetts and my first guest this morning, Michigan Republican Peter Meyer. Congressman, it is really good to have you back on Flashpoint. Before we get to the nuts and bolts of your trip, I am very curious as to whether what happened on Thursday had you rethinking the wisdom of traveling to such a dangerous situation. Now, you and Seth Moulton are both combat veterans. I don't think you shy away from trouble, but you're also members of Congress with a lot of responsibility to your constituents and to your colleagues.
Yeah, and one of our criteria on there was that we would not detract resources, that we would not have any attention ahead of time. We did not want to raise an already heightened threat profile on that airport by having our presence be known. So our goal was exactly that. I mean, it was so that we could understand the situation firsthand, that we could report it back to the American people and to our colleagues in Washington. We could understand what additional resources were needed and frankly, where we should go from here. While we were on the ground, we had initially assessed and had the opinion that we should be pushing back the August 31st deadline. After discussing that with commanders, we are now both fully supportive of the August 31st deadline. We do not support extending that. This is an impossible position that our forces have been put in because of the reckless withdrawal of the Biden administration. But we have been focusing on doing everything we can to speed up the evacuations of American citizens and loyal Afghan allies, and also ensuring that we learn all of the right lessons from this, that it never happens again. I
have no doubt you learned a ton from the time that you spent there, but you did have to deal with criticism from both sides of the aisle, among your own Republican colleagues as well as those among them House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who doesn't want members making these kinds of trips. How do you deal with that kind of criticism? Everything from the fact that there were some who felt you, of course, had to have taken resources away from others who had to be minding you, to that this was kind of a showboating trip.
Those are pretty empty words coming from, oftentimes some of the harshest criticism from anonymous sources at the White House, State Department, and Department of Defense. And it's no surprise that they don't want us to see what's actually going on. This is an administration that has not been truthful. Now, obviously, there's been criticism from others apart from that as well, mostly because we did not keep a lot of individuals who would have preferred to be in the loop. And while I regret that, that was necessary because of the security around the situation in order to make sure that we were not raising that threat profile. But there's been a lot of mistruths and just frankly deception. I've been surprised by how blatant some of the criticism or just how blatant the lies have been, that we took away seats that could have gone to others. That was not the case. We actually had to speed up our timeline because the Biden administration leaked our visit to the Washington Post, but we still waited until there was empty seats on an aircraft, jump seats that refugees could not have gone in because of where they were located on the aircraft, but that weren't occupying by anyone else. And the extent of what we had on the ground, we spoke for 10 to 15 minutes to a variety of individuals. So that did take a little bit of time out of their day. But apart from that, we had one vehicle and we had an individual who was off duty at the time, a member of a security detail for a general who was there, who insisted that we use that vehicle. So this was not a heavy operation. This was intended to be fast, light, and rapid.
I want to move then to what you saw. You have talked about how impressed you were with the American personnel and what they're facing there, which is absolute chaos, obviously from what we've seen, and then in light of what we saw on Thursday. But you didn't. But you changed your mind on that August 31st date. But I'm wondering if you saw procedures that you think need improvement. There surely had to be some kind of procedural breakdown that led to what happened on Thursday, wasn't there?
I mean, let me be very clear. Every individual we met there is operating at full capacity. They have been run ragged, but they are committed to this mission and they are saving lives. I think the American people should be incredibly proud of the sacrifice and the work that's being done on the ground in Kabul. Make no mistake, they're in an impossible position. This is a mission that they should never have had to undertake. There were ways, if the Biden administration would have heeded our bipartisan calls to speed up the evacuation of our Afghan allies in April and in May, we would not have the crushes at the gate that we saw. But those Marines who gave their lives on Thursday, they were keeping that gate open as long as possible, knowing the risk that it prevented, but to save as many lives as possible, the very definition of selfless service. So this is an impossible position that these men and women have found themselves in, and they are doing everything they can, moving heaven and earth to accomplish, again, an impossible mission that they have been forced to undertake.
We are, in a way, relying on the Taliban to act as partners in this effort. That's a phrase that I can barely believe that I'm uttering, given the last 20 years of history. Do you trust the Taliban to help the United States carry out its mission?
I mean, if you have issues, if you can barely believe that phrase, imagine how just upside down it feels to be a member of the U.S. military who, for the majority of your career, your mission has been hunting down and killing or capturing individuals that you are now sitting across the table from, negotiating, deconflicting operations, and reliant on them for our security. Right? This is not an option between working with the Taliban and not working with the Taliban. Not working with the Taliban means potentially a renewal of open urban warfare and any ability to get individuals into the airport, or frankly, to get our forces out of the airport, would be eliminated. So we are not in a position where we have a choice. This is not an option between good and bad. It's between bad and worse. It is absurd. Again, we should never have been put in this position, but we do not have a time machine, and this is the only option left to us. And it is shameful. It is embarrassing that it's come to this. But again, our forces on the ground are doing just incredible work to make the best of a horrific situation, to save as many lives as possible, and we should all be proud.
It would be the busiest time machine around if we, obviously, given what's happened over these last 20 years. But I'm curious, as someone who has served in combat, and you know the well-worn and well-respected idea that we leave no man behind, right now the pledge seems to be that, of course, we're going to try and get every American that wants to come home out of there. Should that same commitment extend to the Afghanis who helped the United States over its mission over these last 2 decades?
Yeah, we made a promise to those Afghans when they supported us that if this day came, if the day that we are in right now ever came, that we would not leave them behind. And that's a promise we need to fulfill. Now, the reality is that after August 31st, we're going to have to continue to work that through less conventional means. And we need to be laying the groundwork for that right now. There's a tremendous, I mentioned the military effort. There's also a tremendous civilian effort and organizing these rescue missions, getting people into gates, focusing on those manifests and vetting individuals that has been incredible. Our office has been working closely and has embedded individuals within this broader effort so we can rescue as many people as possible before August 31st. But we need to continue that after August 31st, just without the footprint that we have on the ground now. It's going to require some extraordinary acts and coordination, but we need to fulfill that promise and not leave our vulnerable allies behind.
One last question, Congressman. Among your comments that you've made since returning, you'd like Congress to claim its war powers responsibility. What do you mean by that and why now?
We would not be in the situation we are today if every 2 years for the past 20, Congress had to sit down and cast a deciding vote on whether or not we could believed and were willing to commit the lives of American men and women in furtherance of that mission, right? Force Congress to vote yes or no. If we had been forced to vote on whether or not to send arms and weapons shipments to the Afghan military, if that is a vote that required a majority in the House and a majority in the Senate, we would have asked more questions and we wouldn't have that material falling into the hands of the Taliban today. Congress needs to bring back that scrutiny. It needs to bring back that accountability. We have delegated it for far too long. And frankly, if we don't do that, we will not learn the right lessons and we will not be in a position to ensure that what we have seen over the past several weeks, the horror on Thursday, we need to make sure that never happens again. We owe it to the men and women who serve our country to repeatedly make sure this never happens again.
Congressman Peter Meyer, I'm glad you're back safe and sound and really glad that you had time to spend with us today on Flashpoint. Great to have you here and I look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you.
You bet. Congressman Peter Meyer, we come back. The 3 county executives from around Metro Detroit on masks and vaccines. This is Flashpoint on Local 4.